Hey, hello everyone. Hello everyone. I hope you're joining us today. So the topic today is the source. That's going to be our topic today. It's the source. I hope that you're able to come in and just sit with me for a minute as we go over some, something that I think that's important. I think is important because a lot of times when we're dealing in Freemasonry, in order these things start, we just take things on face value instead of going back looking at the original source of how we got to this thing we call Freemasonry. How did we get here? Where did this thing called Freemasonry originate from? And I'm going to tell you, and I know some is going to agree, disagree, but I'm going to tell you my thoughts based upon what I've come across. And I believe this person, uh, Dr. Youssef, I believe his research. I believe in what he's put out based upon his readings, and I know some of you may already know him. Based upon his academics, this guy is on point. And so my thing is going to be, what's up, brother Walker? How you doing? My thing is going to be dealing with the source. My source is going to be Dr. Ben Youssef. Based upon his literature that he's put out, based upon that man academics, just his whole premises of what he's proven to be fact, not something somebody has stated. So that's going to be our conversation today. Is the source of the craft. How did we get here? And I'm going to tell you this. As I looked at some of the things that Dr. Ben talked about in his source and references, we must come to one thing and one thing right now. The fact that the first European nations was the Greeks, and the European nation as known was the Greeks and the Roman. Okay, the first two books that was written out of Europe was Lily and Odyssey. Lily and Odyssey were the first two books that was written out of Europe. And I need for you to look those books up and go check them out. So it's spelled Lliad. And then the other one is Odyssey, which is Odyssey. Those are two books that was first written out of Europe. And when you get to those two books, I need for you to take a look at how they began to adopt the gods out of Ethiopia. And when you get there, you're going to learn that a lot of things that the Greeks was doing, and I know some of you probably already know, was from the continent. It was from the continent. So as we begin to look at the source of the craft, we're going to find that the source of the craft as we know it today was from the continent of Africa, out of Ethiopia. I'm based upon what I've read in regards to Dr. Ben Youssef and his information, and not going to say his information alone, only because what I'm finding is that when you speak of the craft, a lot of people like to say they don't know where it came from. And that's not necessarily true, because a lot of people want to relate stonemasons to the craft. Well, when you look at how the stonemasons, before we know of the buildings we got today, there were pyramids long before that. And when we look at that, we're going to go back a little bit farther. We're going to talk about Imhotep, who was the father of what we know of as Freemason, because what he did was, before, check out, Imhotep mother and sister was both physicians. Okay, his whole family was freaking talented. But with Imhotep, what he did was he tried to figure out a way how to preserve the bodies, because the bodies was deteriorating when the pharaohs was dying. So during the third dynasty for Imhotep, the funny thing is he started to do embalmings upon the bodies and then putting them into stone caverns. Okay, and that's where we began to talk about stones, and that's where we began to talk about what we know today as Freemasonry, which was at one time called the craft. And it was called the craft because of how they crafted the stones for which they was working with. And not only that, the tools for which they did this work with. And those tools today are used in Freemasonry to for symbolic teachings, although and how they built them was something special. And this is why when you get into certain degrees in Freemasonry, your marking has to be verified. Your marking has to be verified. You know what I'm talking about. If you're a Mason, you know how they have to verify your marking. And with that being said, that's what they had to do. So I'm going to go on. It says, out of those books, even the gods that the Greeks and the Romans adopted was from Ethiopia. Okay. Now there are two lands that make up England. There are two lands that make up England. There's Anglo, and then there is Ireland. Okay, they make up the land that is known as England. Okay, in its combination, Ireland and Scotland really make it up. Okay, the land which is known for England. All right. So upon finding the documents of the craft and learning how to carve the stone and making those tombs, because we know that the pyramids are tombs, you will find those working tools. And you will find those tools engraved upon the stones of those times. And then as they were discovered, and then once being translated, hear me clearly, once being translated, those individuals who translated those things for which they found in the creation of them using them, you will find that what they did was the documents was translated and then they was hidden. Translated and hidden. Why would you say they was hidden? Because when you look at Freemasonry today versus what it was in the beginning, it was truly that society that nobody really knew about. It was that society for which nobody knew about. And this is why they call it the oldest, in my own personal opinion, this is why they call it one of the oldest fraternities. Because no one really knew the workings of what they were doing in Freemasonry. Okay, so as we began to see the combination of a lot of things that are happening, because you got to realize Imhotep was around long before Solomon hit the map. He was around long before that, and the contribution he had made to humanity was already written down for some, not all, for some. And we know that those things was lost. And when I say lost, they was hidden. Um, and in the process of being hidden, we will find that uh, they was forbidden. A lot of the things that we know today and was forbidden to know back then. Okay, it truly, let's just be what it is. A lot of things we know today versus what we versus then was forbidden. It was taboo. You know, the practices of Freemasonry and allowing faiths, various people from different faiths to come together for the benefit of each other. That was really kind of that wasn't something you really want to do during those times. So as we look at Freemasonry, the craft and what it meant and the teachings for which they brought to humanity, you can say that if you took the craft and its principles, you can do a lot with that. You can really, man, you can really shape society with the craft. You could really do that. And as we see, it was done. America was shaped by the craft. That's a fact. America was shaped by the craft. Look at all of those signers of the Declaration. Look at those leaders within the craft. The craft, America was shaped by the craft in its documents and what was happening with it. So as we attempt to go into where this source come from, in my opinion, based upon what I've read, based upon research that was already done, and I would say by Dr. Ben, you can go and see that the source of the craft is strictly from Ethiopia, based upon the buildings of the pyramid and those stone masons who carved out that pyramid, who built it, who set the standards of how things should be measured. That's just me based upon what I've come across. Now, some of you may know something a little different. I won't deny that, but I'm talking about based upon the facts of what's already out here that you can actually go get and it's tangible. And you can say, wow, you know, you can put your hands on it and read for yourself. And I think Dr. Ben laid. And I say that only because when you look at what has been hidden, taken, and not really allowed for you to participate in, you can come to that conclusion. Greetings, brothers and sisters of the craft. Um, what if I found out that the source not only came from the east, but the west, where we are here in north? Oh, I'm not going to disagree with that. You know why? Because we know now that there are pyramids all over the United States. We know this now. Years ago, maybe not, but today, oh, we know that there are clearly pyramids all over the United States. We know today that there are places in the Grand Canyon that you are not allowed to go. Period. You are not allowed to go. And you have to ask yourself, why is that? And what we're finding is that this landmass, as we know, as we look at it, was one mask at times. So I'm not going to disagree with you at all on that. As a matter of fact, you got my vote on it. You got an amen corner on that because of the information that's forthcoming now. And I'm going to tell you this, upon finding those documents of the builders, okay, of the craft, because we know that the Europeans went over, they raided those tombs. They did that. They raided those burial sites. They did all of that. The Greeks and the Romans, they did the damn thing. And upon raiding those temples, upon raiding those grave sites, and they found manuscripts. They did. And this is where the craft comes from. This is its source. Long before King Solomon, you have Imhotep. And you also know that the writings of the craft has changed. We know that at one time, St. John the Baptist and St. John the Evangelist was not the first two patriots. They was not the first two. You know, you had Moses and you had Noah, you know, as your first two patriots. So we know that the ritual, as we know it today, has been somewhat changed and written over. But even when you read today's Masonic rituals, it all turns back to a place over in the continent. Even if you mention Solomon and all of that, you still got to look at the source. Where did that story originate from? And the stories that we're finding originated on the continent. This is what we're finding. This is not somebody's just pulling out the sky. We're finding out that the sources for which the Masonic craft is based upon is definitely originating out of the continent or from the continent. Now, some of you have said, as the brother just so eloquently put it, you know, what if he can prove that it was here in North America, in the West? And I'm going to agree with that also. I have to, because of what is being found, because of what is out here before our very eyes, you know. And when you see that in the concept for which we are and where we're at right now, you have to think about it. You have to think about it. A long time ago, I changed my whole concept on it. A long time ago, because I had started, unfortunate, I'll be back in San Diego for my grandma homegoing. Check in with you, maybe meet at the spot, those good wings. Oh yeah, bro, you hit me up. We'll go get some wings when you get back out here, you know. Let me know when. Just let me know when so I can make sure I'm in town. But when you begin to break that down and shape that and look at it for what it is, all you can do is say yes. That's really all you can do. I'm no longer, I mean, look, when I first got into the craft and I learned about King Solomon and all of that, yeah, I believed that the first concept of the craft derived from England. I did. I won't deny that. I did. I cannot deny that. However, as I matured, as I began to look at the craft, as I began to break that down and say, okay, let me take another look at it, my thought process began to change. I started to see that from a different perspective, a different point of view. And if you don't begin to grow in Freemason, when you get into it, then it's just fun and games for you. But if you take Freemasonry serious and you begin to really check its doctrine and go back, man, it is something to be reckoned with, you know. So when you look at Freemason for which we have it today, you can do so much with it. You can do a lot with Freemasonry. And I'm going to say this: the Europeans, Anglo-Saxons, they have taken Freemasonry to a whole new level. It is truly how I want to put that. It is truly a society, not a fraternity. I say a society, because within that society you have everything you need, and they have everything they need. They have set it up and structured it that way, and I give them full credit for it. The only thing I would add to that is the mere fact that for those of us who are coming into the craft, and for those of us who have been around for a while, we have yet not learned how to do the same. We have not learned how to do the same, and that's our own fault. And the reason we have not learned how to do the same is because we don't want to. That's my earnest opinion. We don't want to. If we wanted to do the same, we would have did it a long time ago. But when you look at Imhotep, I see around the Third Dynasty, when the revolution took place of the building of stone and putting his father into a stone grave, or the pharaohs into a temple of such. This is that concept of stonemasons, not just the buildings of the churches as we was once told, but the building of graves to preserve the bodies. Truly, if you go back and read in regards to Dr. Yusuf, his lectures on Freemasonry will make you go back and check yourself and see if this guy was right. And you have to realize he was a Mason also. He was a Mason also. Not only that, he was a Shriner. So if I'm going to quote anybody, if I'm going to go to a source, it's going to be him. Period. I'm not messing with anybody else. I'm going to go to him as a source. And you know what? I do like Dr. Manly P. Hall. I do like his writings. And there's a few more that I've come across besides them. But Dr. Ben is my number one guy. That is true. So when we look at this concept of stones being used for graves, for stones being used for building, you have to go back to Imhotep, because they left the secrets on how to carve stone. They left that secret. And it's no longer a big secret now, but it was a secret at the time. At the time, that was like, wow, how did they actually carve that stone and make it a grave? Or how is it that they built this and built that out of stone? It was a secret at that time. But now it's not necessarily a big secret. But the working tools that they use, and not only how they use the tools, but how they apply those same tools and structures to their daily life. Now, we who are speculative Masons, we take that same concept and we try to apply it. We try to apply it. But even with trying to apply it, we miss the mark. Even with trying to apply it, we miss the mark. How you doing? And in doing so, we fail badly. We really, man, we do ourselves a disservice, because what we claim we love so much, and what we claim we enjoy so much, we don't show it. We don't. We don't show the love that we have for the craft to the next person. We don't share that love. We don't extend that love. And if we do extend it, we only extend it to those who we accept, and not those who we appreciate. There's a difference. I can accept you and don't appreciate a damn thing about you. But if I respect you, I can definitely accept you. That's just me. And in the process, when you look at that, it's like, okay, I can roll with that. I can definitely roll with that. But anyway, let me get focused. So as we begin to look at Imhotep and his contribution of being the father, I'm going to say this, and being the father of Freemasonry, it's enlightening. Go back and read the things in the writings regarding Imhotep. Go back and check that out. Perspective. It would definitely do that. and you won't be saying, well, Freemason derived from. No, it did that for me. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh well, uh, this or that about anybody else. I'm going to say for me, in my studies, this is what it has done for me. Finding out the contribution that Imhotep has made to Freemasonry. They called it the craft at one time. It was only known as the craft. It wasn't known as Freemasonry as we call it today. It was originally known as the craft. That is the source. That was called the craft. And the craft was those who actually correlated with the building, and it came from Imhotep in in his way of preserving the bodies of the pharaohs. That's true, Grand Master Imhotep, but even deeper, his father and even his entire family was heavy in knowledge. Oh, I'm going to agree with you with 110,000%. His whole family was definitely into a lot of just they they was just geniuses. And here's the thing. Here's the thing I want to share with you. Some that I came across. Let me see. I want to share this with you. Okay, it says, uh, I wrote this down because I thought it was interesting. Okay, so it says in the third dynasty, a revolution took place. The building of the first stone structure took place in the third dynasty, and then it says the Greek pronounced Zeuse, Z-U-Z-A. They called it Dorsey. It means men of multiple geniuses. The talent by the name of Imhotep. So they couldn't even get the man's name right. They call it Dorsey, Doozer, Dorsa or Dorsey. And in the process, it wasn't even called that. It was Zeuse, Z-U-Z-A. Now they even tell you, the Greeks and the Romans even tell you about the geniuses of Imhotep and what his contribution was to humanity. Okay? And that's the thing. We only believe things when other people write it, and not go and read the writings of African Americans or Africans or those people who've actually done that research on a particular subject. We do that all the time. And I don't find that, I don't know. I don't know why we do that to each other. Not necessarily to each other, but I think we should just go and look at other readings from other individuals. How long did it take for you to get the third degree? Before I change the subject and answer that question, I wanna just say that I would have anyone who's a Mason to go back and check out Dr. Ben Youssef study on Freemasonry. Go and check him out, see what he has to contribute to Freemasonry, and knowing that he himself was a Freemason, knowing that he was also a Shriner. But in saying that, I want to bid you a great day, and I hope everyone is doing well. But to answer your question, it took me a year and a half before I was made a Master Mason. That's how long it took me. Some people, it doesn't take that long, but my lodge was, they operated a little bit differently. Every 3 months, there was a degree. So if you was a fellow craft in January, February, March, if you was an inner apprentice in January, so you would go February, March, April, you would be a fellow craft, and then May, June, July, around August, you would be a Master Mason. Okay, so it took that type of process for me to get to where I'm at. Now here in this jurisdiction, it usually takes a person a year before he becomes a Master Mason. It'll take you about a year. And then upon that, we do our yearly raising, unless a lodge wants to do their own raising, but we try to do a yearly raising with brothers of the craft coming together from various parts of the states and doing a mass raising. So that's what we get. That's how we do it here, and that's the thing. That's the thing. Let's see what else we got here. 15 years. Ooh. Secretary. take for you to get your third degree? 15 years. Woo, that's a long time. That's a long time if that's what I'm understanding right. Yeah, if I'm understanding that right. So greetings to everybody who is just coming on. You know, today our topic was the source, and I wanted to share you that my source of information a lot of times come from Dr. Youssef. Not only him, there are several others, but him in particular, along with Professor or Dr. Manly P. Hall. I don't too much use Albert Pike, although I do like the Dogs and Magma. I think that's great, but I also have a book that is written in regards to the primitive rights. I don't recall the book, but I have it. I will share with you probably on tomorrow. That book adds a lot of flavor into why we do certain things. So I just want to encourage each Mason, no matter of your Grand Lodge, to go out and research the craft and just to see how beautiful it is and what you can actually do with it. You can do so much more with it. And that is my encouragement for you today, is to do that for yourself. Do that for yourself. So with that being said, I want to bid you a great day. I hope that all is well with you and your family. Peace be upon you as those who are practicing Islam. Assalamu alaikum to you. And peace and be well. I'm out. Remember this, I'm not your study guide. I'm just here to help you study. Stay out the bushes and keep your light on. Peace.